I hate to say this, but a lot of people say, you know, I really don't want to stop eating pork.
Really?
Yes, that's believe it or not, that's
They say I like everything about Islam, but I just can't stop eating pork.
they don't, yeah. And some of the things that we don't do, like you know, we don't gamble, we don't smoke, we don't use the profanity, you know, we don't do the other things that other people that here in Georgia and in America that they would call fun. You know, we have to stop all those things. And so when you tell a person, but you know, once you learn to live a life of Islam, you know, you're on a straight path. So which way would you rather live? You know, if everyone is trying to make it to paradise, to heaven, you know, everyone is going to be held an account for what they do. Why not start now doing the right things, the things that you know are right? You know, for instance, I tell a lot of my friends, well, I don't want to quit eating pork. And I tell them, well, have you ever known anyone to go to the doctor that's about to die or they have serious ailments? One of the first things the doctor will tell them, you need to get off of the pork and the fatty food so that, you know, your blood pressure will go down, your diabetes will correct itself and all these type of things. So they know some of the things that they should do, but you have a choice. Either you can follow this world or you can just try to stay on the straight path.
Right. Alhamdulillah. Akhi. Well, Brother Saeed, thank you for sitting with us and spending some time with us. And your story, everybody's story is a little bit different, but there's always some unique aspects to the way Allah guides people to Islam.
Alhamdulillah.
So before we conclude here, I just want to ask you, from what you've observed of Islam in America, what do you feel is the future outlook for Islam in America?
I think Islam is what America really needs. This country needs a serious correction.
A serious correction from what?
A serious correction from a deviated path. I think if we would do what we know is right and correct, a lot of things would straighten out and take care of themselves. If you truly want for your brother what you want for yourself, we wouldn't have the ills of society that we have now. We wouldn't do the things that we do. If we could look out and understand other people and other cultures, we would see them as people as well. Everyone is not your enemy. Because someone speaks a different language, because someone has a different skin color, we're all just one humanity.
Right.
And we should get to understand each other, love each other, and just talk to each other.
And have you been able to travel in the Muslim world?
Yes, I have. My wife is originally from Fez, Morocco, and I've traveled to Morocco. I've traveled there 10 times since the year of 2000. We got married in the year of 2000.
And what have you seen has been the perception of the people of the countries you visited of America?
Most of the time, the thing I find out is that people are very inquisitive about Americans. They want to know what your country is like. They want to practice their English with you. You know, can I speak to you? Can I practice my English? Can you tell me if you can understand me? Those type of things. But they're very warm, very hospitable, and they don't have problems with American people. It's just our policies, the government's policies. But they love the American people.
Okay. Well, Brother Saeed, thank you for sitting with us.
Much.
And I hope that our viewers were able to take a bit of insight of the reasons people come to Islam here in the United States of America. And as Brother Saeed said, maybe Islam is something that America needs. And I'm joined by one of my brothers in Islam, Brother Yusuf Burke. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
And very nice to meet you. And I thank you for sitting and agreeing to talk with us.
My pleasure.
Brother Yusuf, just tell us a bit about yourself and your background and how you came to Islam.
Well, I was raised in New York in the Albany area, raised as Catholic for my whole life and went to Catholic schools all the way even through university. And I went, my father used to travel to the Middle East a little bit, so he had some Muslim friends and understood a little about Islam and Muslims from him. We had some of them over at our house a few times, so that was interesting to see the cultural differences as well as the religious differences. I studied a little bit in college when I was, doing a comparative religion class, and understood the basics of Islam. But really didn't understand much until I really traveled and lived in Indonesia. That was my first sort of predominantly Muslim country that I went and lived in, and really, a lot of.
How did you? Excuse me if I can ask. How did you come to travel to Indonesia?
Well,
and before you got to that point to travel, I mean, did you go to university? Did you study there? And was the job related to your?
Yeah, I studied as an engineer, and about 2 years after I got out of school, I joined General Electric, GE Energy, and I was a field engineer, and I traveled overseas to work on power projects, so building power plants basically.
Right.
So the first Muslim country I went to was Indonesia back in 1994, and really enjoyed meeting the people there. Wonderful people, very friendly and very open and willing to really wanting to engage in conversation with you just because you're different, and just started to learn about Islam then, and I converted to Islam in 1996, and then married my wife shortly after there, and we traveled around a little more and settled down here about in 2002, after living in Malaysia and Singapore and Australia and Thailand a little bit too. So.
All right, and now when you had become Muslim, I mean, how did your family react to the news that you? I mean, I just want to ask you. I mean, when you studied in Catholic schools and Catholic university. Yep. Okay. Did you feel you had a good understanding of Catholicism?
I think, yeah, I did have a good understanding of Catholicism. I think what really brought me to Islam is it's very logical, and as an engineer, I appreciated that. And really felt as I discussed about and really lived among Muslims, I really felt the brotherhood that they share, and that really drew me to it as well. And just the logic overwhelmed me, and that's where I became Muslim. And as I learned about more when I went to Australia and then Malaysia. I took classes and learned from some people, and just the way they presented it to me was just really struck me as this is the right way.
And I think I was asking you, how did your family react when you became Muslim?
Yeah, I think they were a little surprised, obviously, but I think they understood that that was my decision, and they're very open-minded, and I think they have a good respect for all people, first of all, but also religions, especially monotheistic religions. So I think they saw it as I think they saw me. Worshiping in the way I really wanted to, and they appreciated that.
So it wasn't any fallout. They just accepted your decision.
Yeah, they accepted it. I think I need to explain a little bit to them why, and maybe sort of dispel some of the misconceptions that we have here in the United States. But I think once they saw that I was really committed to it, they really support it. And like I said, my mother buys halal meat whenever I go home, so that's wonderful.
MashaAllah. And when you go home, where?
To New York.
To New York.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about the organizations, Islamic organizations, which you're involved here.
Yeah, I'm the president of the local chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, and we're an advocacy group for American Muslims, basically trying to dispel some of the misconceptions as well as help Americans in terms of any kind of civil liberties or civil rights issues, and just trying to bring Muslims to have a better bring them to the seat at the table, I guess, in American society. Also trying to introduce them properly to the larger community. I think a lot of times they don't understand sort of the Islamic perception of things, or the how Muslims relate to different topics and issues at hand in America, and that's what we're trying to bring that taste of Islam to America. Yeah, so some of the things we're doing is, first of all, civil liberties or civil rights issues are the forefront of what we do. Any Muslims who are discriminated against because they're Muslim, whether it be in the workplace or with a government agency, we try to step in and help them. So we're working on several cases right now in terms of discrimination.
Without going into too much detail, can you just give me an example of the nature of some of the cases you're handling now?
The one thing that's great about living in America is that the laws are on the side of freedom of religion and accommodation for religious practices, especially in the workplace. But a lot of times the employers don't understand this, and just making them understand what the practices are and what accommodation, like prayers or hijab or beards for men, in terms of that, just making sure they understand that and that it's allowed on the workplace. Prayer breaks in terms of having.
So you mean there are actual people who have troubles like this in the workplace, but maybe somebody's manager won't allow them to pray, or won't allow them to have a beard, or
exactly,
or ladies they won't allow them to wear their
hijab. They say it's against the uniform policy, but basically the laws are on our side, and we try to reinforce that with the employer. We try to educate them, basically. That's really
first of all, I don't know how anybody would have hijab in their uniform policy.
Well, they say basically no head covering in the uniform policy, like baseball caps or something like that. But if it's religiously mandated, like a yarmulke